Good evening, pilots, and welcome back to Basic Fundamentals Course 2 for the MiG-29 Sierra, which will be going over startup, taxi, and takeoff. As usual, the first thing we'll do is go over the necessary controls for today's course. So, starting off, we'll work our way from the top down. We'll just look at the air brake. You have Bravo on your keyboard to toggle it, left control Bravo to retract the air brake, left shift Bravo to extend it if you want to have them on independent switches. Alright, moving on down. Obviously, you're going to want the canopy open close, left control Charlie. Now, in case something goes south, obviously you want to be able to eject, so left control E times 3. You press it 3 times in order to punch out. Electrical power, right shift in Lima. Left engine start with right alt and home. Left engine stop with right alt and end. Right engine start with right control home. Right engine stop with right control end. Or you can do the simultaneous startup, so right shift and home. First the left engine will cycle, then the right engine. And then to stop both engines simultaneously, right shift and end. Okay? We have flaps landing position, left shift and foxtrot, flaps up, left control, foxtrot, or to toggle them, just the foxtrot key by itself. The nose wheel light, sort of misleading actually. You have the taxi light with the first depression of right alt and Lima. You have the landing and takeoff lights with right alt and Lima on second depression, and then one more time to shut the lights off. Cockpit lights with Lima by itself. Jettison fuel tanks, not a bad one to have ready on the set with left alt and Romeo. And I am actually missing our... Oh, never mind. Got ahead of myself. Okay, landing gear. Down with left shift and golf. Landing gear up, left control golf, or you can toggle golf up and down. Navigation lights with right control and Lima. Nose wheel steering with left alt Quebec. What this does in the MiG-29 is increases the nose gear maneuvering range. So it allows you to turn tighter. Trim reset, left control and tango. Obviously you want to map all your trim functions. So left wing down, nose up, and right wing down. I suggest mapping these in the actual DCS menu, even if you're using a profiling software of some sort. The response time tends to be a little bit better and a little bit more controlled. And it's only with trim that I've noticed that, but if you guys haven't noticed any problem with that, then by all means disregard that. Wheel brake, for those of you using keyboard commands or need to map it to a button, is whiskey. That will put the brake on full power. Wheel brake start. I believe with each depressant adds more and more wheel brake. Going over to the axis real quick. Obviously you want your pitch, you want your roll. Rudder, if you have the a rudder axis available. Left thrust, right thrust, and there's your wheel brake again. On the wheel brake, for some, you may need to invert it. If you happen to notice that when you come into the cockpit, if you see that handle all the way depressed as it is right now, you will want to go in the axis 2 and hit that invert button. That way it's released when your axis is released as well. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into starting this bird. So the first thing we do is right shift and Lima to bring up the electrical power. Then we'll go to our external view and we'll hit right control and Lima. Bring up our navigation lights. Okay. We'll come back into the cockpit. If you prefer, you can hit Lima on your keyboard to bring up the cockpit lights. I don't use them much during the day. We're going to verify that all of our trim settings are in neutral, which they are. Okay. And now we will begin by cycling the left engine with right alt and home. You can see the left ignition light coming on, and now we're watching for RPM. So there's engine 1 rolling. As engine 1 begins to roll, we'll see the inlet temperature increase. Once the ignition light has extinguished, we'll go ahead and start up the second engine. So there's the inlet temperature rising. Should stabilize at about 400 degrees Celsius. And RPM should stabilize at about 70%. Okay, ignition light is out. We'll go ahead and start rolling number 2. So right control and home. Engine 1 is now stabilized. Ignition light on 2. 2 rolling. Coming up on 20%. Next part of the procedure here, we'll go ahead and go back to our external view. We'll hit right Alt and Lima to bring up the taxi light. Go ahead and close our canopy with left control Charlie. And we will begin rolling. Hitting left Alt Quebec to increase the turn rate. So as long as I have left Alt Quebec depressed, you can notice the nose gear maneuvering range has increased. As I let go of it, significantly degraded. Okay? So we'll go ahead and line ourselves back up. And pull the power off, just enough to keep her rolling. Got going a little hot there, but I wanted you guys to see the steering on the maneuvering range there. Alright, and from here I will taxi us out to the runway and we'll go over the takeoff. I'll see you guys in a minute. So the first thing we're going to do is come back to our external view. We're going to hit our takeoff lights. Alright, so we've got the takeoff light set. Flaps are set. We have our flaps down now. The MiG-29, to my understanding, flaps takeoff is actually the same as flaps landing. They're fully deployed. So don't sweat that one. Alright, so we got our flap set, we got our takeoff lights on, we've been cleared for takeoff. Let's go ahead and center line her. That's close enough for what we're looking for. Okay, so here's how this is going to happen. So the first thing we're going to do is power her up to about 85%, get a nice engine ramp. Then we'll go to 100. We'll push past 100 and get the afterburners ignited. Over here you'll see 2 lights come on. That will let you know that the afterburners are in ignition. So real handy if you ever see one or the other on or both of them on and you don't think you're an afterburner, that's a nice indication that you are, versus like the F-15 that when you're an afterburner you don't get any kind of visual aid, right? Let's see here, how are we going to do this? So once we get rolling, we're going to be looking for 300 kph indicated. At 300 we'll start our rotation back to about 10 degrees. We'll climb out to about we'll probably go to about 2,000 barometric. So let's actually talk about that for a few seconds here. So here you see 2 indications here, 780 and the 90. The 90 is our current quote-unquote true airspeed in kilometers per hour. And the 780 is your programmed waypoint speed. So it's a speed that we should be at while traveling to said waypoint. 2000 is our destination altitude, right? So waypoint 1's altitude is set for 2000. We see that we have the 1 Romeo here now. I did notice in this tutorial, for whatever reason, I don't remember setting this, so forgive me. These are all the HUD symbology is in English, and I'm not quite sure why. I don't remember setting that, but for the next one, I'll make sure to set it back to the native language. So getting back over here, we can see that we are currently at 1 meter radar altimeter, now at 1500. This will automatically switch over to barometric pressure. Okay, so we'll get our sea level. We have our currently selected waypoint distance. Alright, so we're all set here. So this is all going to happen pretty quick. The MiG-29, she gets up and goes, man. She's a cooker. So one more time real quick, because I know I sort of garbled that up. We're going to be looking for 300, rotate 10 degrees. We're going to climb out to 2,000 meters. At 1500, the altimeter will switch from radar to barometric. Okay, as soon as we get positive rate, it'll be gear up. At 500, the flaps will be fully retracted to 10%. So here's the cool thing about the MiG-29. The MiG-29 actually has combat flaps. At maximum speed, you can drop the flaps 10%. Okay, now they won't go the flaps and slats. So slats are in the front of the wing. There you go, you can see them right there. Those are our slats, and we have the flaps in the back. So they will deploy to 10%, and I think that slats will deploy based on the current G rating on the front end, on the leading edge of the wing. Okay, now you still want to make sure you retract your flaps fully once you get past about, like I said, 500 kilometers per hour. So it's all going to happen pretty quick, so hopefully it doesn't happen too fast that you guys don't catch anything. Another quick tip, I like to add a little bit of aft trim on the stick to sort of help her once she gets airborne. With the gear down, she likes, I'm going to change that, she loves to go nose down. So until you get the gear up, give yourself a little bit of back trim. God, I can't talk today. And that'll sort of help you on the stability of the climb out. Okay. As I think I've mentioned before, she's a really trimmy aircraft. Lots of trim in this aircraft. So be ready for that. Alright. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get her rolling. So we're going to go ahead and power up to 8.5. So there's about 85%. We're going to come off the brakes, go up to 100. Looking for those afterburners. There's the afterburner ignition lights on the bit panel. Adding a little bit of left trim there, or left rudder. Looking for 300. There's our 300. Climbing out, rotating. Come on, baby. Alright, positive rate. Gear up. And once you get the gear up, she stabilizes real quick. Okay, past 5. Flaps fully retracted. Looking for 770 on our airspeed. Oh, got a little faster. Alright, now as I pull back on the power, she's wanting to nose down again, so we're going to trim nose up. Still continuing to pull the power off. Keep an eye on that radar altimeter, watching for it to switch over at 1500. We'll go ahead and turn towards the waypoint. Continuing our climb, continuing to pull power off. Keep an eye on that radar altimeter. Watch it switch here in just a minute. Now notice that when I bank hard enough, okay, she switches. Alright, that's because of what the radar, the radar altimeter is doing. It's literally shooting a radar beam directly down underneath the aircraft. And our bank angle has reached a point where it can no longer see the ground. Okay, so the radar beam itself exceeds 1500 meters, and that's why you saw it switch. But then when I come out of the turn, notice we're still in radar altimeter. Okay, so if you ever see that happen, it's the same thing in every aircraft. You can't rely on a radar altimeter in a tight turn, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and come out of the turn because I want you guys to see it actually switch where it's supposed to. So we're approaching 1500. Nice easy climb out. and there's our switch into barometric pressure. Okay, so when the R goes away, or whatever the native symbology is, the correct symbology, that's how you know you are now getting your altitude according to mean sea level. Okay. Alright guys, well that pretty much covers startup, taxi, and takeoff. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and get you airborne, give you a little couple of tips to sort of think about when you're flying. Real quick, I will show you what I meant about the combat flaps. So we're going to go to the external view. You're going to see the aircraft jump around a little bit. Ignore that because obviously I'm flying externally here. But I'm going to tap my flaps down button. Okay, and you can see, you know what, let's put her in. There we go. Okay. There we go, nice and steady. So you can see how the flaps dropped about 3 or 4% there. And I think for a maximum of 10 is what should do above 500 knots. Or 500 kph, excuse me. So if I go back flaps up, okay, you can see them sort of twitch down or twitch up, and then once again flaps down again. There. So the advantage of that is not going to be so much for payload and things like that, but back in the days of the warbirds and in World War II, like a common tactic that, for example, the Mustang I know would use in certain dogfights is they add just a little bit of flaps to help increase their turn rate. So that's something to think about if you're in a fight and you just need that last little edge to come around the corner. You can drop your flaps in the MiG-29 just a hair, and it may give you just enough increased turn rate to grab your bandit. So again, fun little tip. I'm really enjoying the MiG-29 so far. Still got a lot to learn. I hope you guys are enjoying this as well, and we'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, guys. Take care.